Ever wonder how we really measure the pulse of the economy?
Mm-hmm.
Like why prices seem to be climbing relentlessly, or, how agricultural output in your region is genuinely doing year over year.
Yeah, it's not always obvious.
It's rarely just a gut feeling, right? There are specific tools that help us quantify these massive, often invisible shifts.
Exactly. Very specific tools.
Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into something called index numbers.
A fundamental concept.
Yeah, and these aren't just dry statistics you hear quoted on the news. They're the sophisticated barometers of economic activity.
They really are.
They allow us to compare everything from the cost of living, say, in one city versus another, to the incredible swings in industrial production across different decades.
Huge comparisons become possible.
So our mission today is to unpack what index numbers truly are, their surprisingly ancient origins.
Which might surprise some people.
Definitely. And the different forms they take, why they're utterly indispensable in economics, how they're actually constructed, and crucially, what their inherent limitations are.
We need to talk about those too, absolutely.
Think of this as your key to unlocking a deeper understanding of a fundamental concept that shapes policy, drives markets, and subtly informs our daily lives. Hopefully giving you those aha moments about the numbers you encounter every day.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, let's unpack this then. When you hear index numbers, you might immediately think modern economics, maybe digital algorithms, complex data sets.
Right, super high-tech stuff.
But their story, surprisingly, goes way, way back.
Oh, absolutely. What's fascinating here is that the earliest concerns leading to the development of index numbers weren't about, grand economic models or national accounts.
What then?
They stem from a very human, very relatable problem: the rising cost of living.
Okay. That makes sense.
Back in the 17th century, an Englishman named Rice Vaughan was acutely aware of the persistent price increases happening right in his own country, just noticing things getting more expensive.
So it started with simple curiosity about, personal finances. Did that spark serious attempts to quantify these changes? I'm curious about the very first study using anything like an index.
It did, absolutely. That curiosity led to the first known methodical comparison. In 1707, a gentleman named William Fleetwood.
Fleetwood, okay.
He made a detailed comparison of common commodity prices, things like wheat, oats, beans, cloth, meat, everyday stuff.
Right.
And he compared two distinct periods, 1440, 1460, and 1686, 1706.
Wow, that's a huge span.
Huge. He published these findings in his work, Chronicon Preciosum, essentially showing how much more expensive everyday life had become over centuries.
Comparing prices across over 200 years without modern tools, it's quite a feat.
It really is.
So did this idea quickly spread beyond England, perhaps to other European nations, or did it take time for others to sort of catch on?
It definitely gained traction, though maybe not instantly. In 1738, Charles de Ferrar-Dutot in France constructed what's called a simple aggregative index.
Okay, what's that?
It essentially means he just added up the prices of a fixed list of goods to compare the total cost over different time periods. In his case, between 1508 and 1735, pretty basic, but a step forward.
Still useful, though.
Definitely. However, the first recorded index number, as we might truly recognize it today, using a more refined mathematical approach, that appeared later.
When was that?
In 1764, by an Italian named G.R. Carli. He used a modified form of the simple average of price relatives, basically comparing individual price changes to build his index. This truly laid the groundwork for the more sophisticated tools we discussed today.
Okay, so we've seen index numbers emerge from this historical need. But for those of us tracking economic news today, what's the core essence of an index number? What makes it such a vital statistical tool, especially in how it helps us understand relative changes?
Right. At their core, an index number is a statistical device. It's designed to measure changes in an economic variable or a group of variables over time or space or even between different categories like income levels. It's fundamentally about showing relative change, not direct absolute measurements.
Right. Not the absolute number, but how much it's moved.
Exactly. It helps us answer how much has this changed compared to that.
Right. So it's less about a fixed point and more about understanding movement relative to a starting line. That makes sense.
Precisely.
What are some of their key characteristics then that define them as these economic parameters?
You're spot on with barometers. They are, first and foremost, statistical tools and specialized averages, often expressed in percentages, which makes comparison easier. They are designed to measure the net change in one or more related variables across different time periods or locations. You'll generally encounter two forms: univariate indexes.
Just one variable.
Yeah, focusing on a single variable like the price of wheat, and composite indexes, which are built from a group of variables like a whole basket of consumer goods.
Got it. And we often hear about a base year when index numbers are discussed. Why is this reference point so crucial? What does it tell us compared to the current year?
Okay, so the current year is simply the year for which the index is being calculated. Pretty straightforward.
Right.
The base year, however, is absolutely critical. It's your reference point, your anchor. And by convention, its index is typically assumed to be 100.
Ah, the starting line is 100.
Exactly. This provides that relative context we mentioned, allowing us to easily see if the current year is, say, 110.
Meaning a 10% increase.
10% increase from the base, yeah. Or maybe 95, a 5% decrease. It's the anchor that makes the comparison meaningful and easy to grasp.
So we've laid the groundwork, understanding what index numbers are, and their surprisingly long history. But like any powerful tool, they come in different forms, each designed to shed light on a specific aspect of the economy. What are the main types we commonly encounter?
Okay, you'll typically encounter four main types. The most common, and perhaps the one you hear about most often, is the price index number. This measures general changes in the prices of goods and services, allowing us to compare price levels between different time periods.
So when we talk about inflation, or the CPI, that's a price index at work.
Precisely. Inflation is a direct application of a price index. The consumer price index is a classic example.
Okay, what else?
Then there's the quantity index number, sometimes called a volume index.
Volume. Like how much stuff?
Exactly. This measures changes in the actual level of output or the physical volume of production in the economy, changes in agricultural harvests or industrial factory output over time, how much is being produced.
And if we're measuring both price and quantity, is there a way these two elements are combined into a single index, something more comprehensive?
Excellent question. That's where the value index number comes in.
Value.
Value, at its simplest, is just price times quantity. So a value index number measures changes in the total monetary value of a variable, like total retail sales.
Ah, so it captures both effects.
Exactly. It's often more informative because it captures both price and quantity shifts simultaneously, giving a broader picture of economic activity.
What about economic elements that don't neatly fit into those three categories, like, I don't know, productivity or trade figures?
Good point. That's where special purpose index numbers shine.
Yeah.
These are constructed for very specific uses. For instance, we have import-export index numbers to track trade flows, labor productivity indexes, or even the share price index numbers you hear about daily.
Like the stock market indexes.
Exactly, like the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P 500, or the FTSE 100. They're all special purpose indexes.
Speaking of policy, governments globally rely heavily on these, don't they? Not just for news, but for real decisions.
Absolutely. They are fundamental for policy and analysis worldwide. In India, for example, some widely used indexes include the Consumer Price Index, CPI, the Wholesale Price Index, WPI, the Index of Industrial Production, and even things like the Index of Service Production or the Human Development Index. These provide crucial data points that inform everything from monetary policy to social welfare programs.
So these numbers are clearly more than just, academic exercises.
Yeah.
Why are they so significant for the economy and perhaps more importantly for us as individuals? What makes them truly indispensable tools of economic analysis?
Right, this raises an important question. Their indispensability comes from several key roles. First, they are vital for framing suitable policies.
How so?
Governments use them as guidelines for creating economic policies, managing inflation, supporting agriculture or industry, and crucially, determining wage adjustments and things like dearness allowances for employees, directly based on the cost of living.
So when you say dearness allowances, you mean something that could directly impact our paychecks, to ensure our purchasing power isn't eroded by rising costs.
Precisely that. A dearness allowance is a specific cost of living adjustment, often tied to a price index, used by some governments or employers to adjust wages for inflation. It's a direct link to our daily lives and financial well-being.
Okay, that's significant. What else?
Second, index numbers are crucial for studying trends and tendencies.
Spotting patterns.
Exactly. By looking at, say, an index of industrial production over the last 5 years, we can clearly see if production is trending upwards, downward, or just stagnating. This gives us a clear, quantifiable picture of economic health in that sector.
And if you can identify a clear trend, I imagine that offers some powerful insights for what might happen next.
Indeed. Index numbers are powerful for forecasting about future economic activity. Analyzing past and present trends in things like imports, exports, or consumer spending allows for predictions that guide important decision-making for businesses and governments alike.
Makes sense.
And critically, they are the primary tool for the measurement of inflation.
A big one.
Yeah. This enables governments and central banks to implement appropriate anti-inflationary measures or, assess if their current policies are working.
Finally, how do they help us cut through the noise of financial data? Like, make sense of big dollar figures over time.
That's another key use. They are incredibly useful for presenting financial data in real terms. This process is often called deflating.
Deflating.
Yeah. Index numbers, usually price indexes, are used to adjust nominal financial data like wages or GDP for price changes. This allows us to see the data at constant comparable prices.
So you can see the real growth, not just inflation.
Exactly. It gives a much truer picture of growth or decline, removing the distortion of inflation and letting us see the actual underlying economic movement.
This all sounds incredibly precise and, well, carefully constructed. How do statisticians and economists actually go about building these things? It can't be as simple as just grabbing a few prices from the supermarket, can it?
No, definitely not. It's a structured process with several crucial steps, and each step carries significant weight in the final outcome.
Okay, walk us through it.
First, you must clearly define the purpose of the index number. What specific variable do you intend to measure? What's its scope? Who is it for?
Right. What question are you trying to answer?
Precisely. This foundational step ensures meaningful results, because an index built for tracking consumer prices won't be suitable for tracking, say, industrial output.
Makes perfect sense. You need to know what story you're trying to tell with the numbers. What's the next critical step?
The second critical step is the selection of the base year. This, as we discussed, is your reference point, the 100 mark.
And it has to be a normal year.
Yes, ideally. It needs to be relatively stable, meaning free from natural calamities, wars, or extraordinary economic events like a major crash or boom. And it shouldn't be too far in the past because economic structures change significantly over time.
So the relevance fades if it's too old.
Exactly. The choice of a base year isn't just a technicality. It can significantly influence how economic progress or inflation is perceived.
That's a fascinating insight. And this base year isn't set in stone forever, is it? I think I remember hearing about GDP base years changing.
That's a great observation. You're absolutely right. For example, the Central Statistical Organization, CSO, in India changed the base year for gross domestic product from 2004-05 to 2011-12 back in 2015.
Why'd they do that?
Well, this periodic rebasing, typically every 7 to 10 years or so in many countries, is essential. It accounts for the changing economic structure.
Like new industries emerging.
Exactly. New goods and services appearing, old ones fading, shifts in relative prices, changing consumption patterns. It keeps the index relevant. The base years for things like the Index of Industrial Production and Wholesale Price Index get adjusted for similar reasons, too.
And that process is ongoing.
Always ongoing globally, yes. Statisticians are constantly evaluating if the base year needs updating.
Okay, base year selected. What other considerations come into play?
You then need the careful selection of items. You can't include every single commodity or service.
Right, impossible.
So a representative sample is chosen. This basket of goods needs to reflect the tastes, habits, and customs of the people whose economic activity you're measuring.
So it matches what people actually buy or produce.
Ideally, yes. And standardized or graded items are preferred, if possible, for better, more consistent price comparisons over time.
And the prices themselves. How are they collected to ensure accuracy and avoid bias? Where do they get these numbers?
Good question. Selection of price quotations is vital. Prices vary significantly by location, type of store, even time of day sometimes.
True.
So obtaining them from unbiased price reporting agencies or through careful surveys is crucial. You need to ensure they represent diverse locations and types of sellers relevant to the index's purpose.
A lot of field work involved, potentially.
Can be. Then you need to choose a suitable average for calculation. The arithmetic mean is often used because it's relatively simple to compute.
Okay.
But other averages, like the geometric mean, might be used depending on the index's specific requirements.
And finally, a term I often hear when we talk about big economic numbers, weights. How do those factor in?
Yes, assigning proper weights is the sixth step, and it's hugely important. Weights reflect the relative importance of different items within the index.
Meaning some things count more than others.
Exactly. Not all items are equally important. For instance, in a consumer price index, housing or food might carry a much larger weight than, say, movie tickets because they represent a bigger chunk of average household spending.
Right, that makes intuitive sense.
So assigning specific quantity or value weights based on consumption patterns or production levels can significantly improve the accuracy and relevance of the index. It makes it reflect reality better.
In the last step.
And last, you select an appropriate formula. There are actually several different mathematical formulas you can use, and the choice depends on your purpose, the data you have available, and the type of weighting you've decided on.
We've talked about all the careful choices that go into constructing index numbers, the purpose, base year, items, prices, weights. But what about the actual math? What are the main methods used to crunch these numbers?
Broadly speaking, there are two primary categories of methods: simple index numbers and weighted index numbers.
Okay, simple first.
Right. In the simple index number method, every commodity is given equal importance. It's the easiest way to construct an index, maybe for a quick snapshot or if you lack weighting data.
How does it calculate?
For example, a simple price index number is calculated by just summing up the prices of all the items in your basket in the current year,
Okay.
dividing that total by the sum of the prices of those same items back in the base year, and then multiplying by 100.
Let's try an example.
Sure. So if your total basket costs 300 units in, say, 2015, your current year, and it costs 220 units back in 2010, your base year,
Right.
your simple price index would be 300, 220, 100, which is about 136.36.
Indicating a 36.36% increase since 2010.
Precisely. A significant increase in the cost of that unweighted basket. But of course, the weakness is that it treats everything equally.
Right. So how do weighted index numbers improve on that? This is where it gets interesting with the economists we mentioned earlier, right? LaLaLearns and Posh.
Exactly. With weighted index numbers, suitable weights are assigned to various commodities, recognizing that not all items have equal importance to the overall economic picture or to the consumer. Quantities consumed or produced are often used as these weights.
Okay.
And this is where economists like Etienne Lasper and Herman Posh made major contributions with specific formulas.
Tell me about their approaches. It sounds like they offer different perspectives on the same data using different weights.
They absolutely do. Lasper's, a German economist, formulated an index that uses the quantities from the base period as the weights.
So how much you bought back then?
Exactly. Think of it like this. Lasper's asks, how much does the shopping basket I bought in the base year cost me today? So if you're calculating a price index, you're weighting today's prices by how much of each item was purchased in the base year. This gives us what's called Lasper's price index. It measures the price change of a fixed historical basket.
Okay, so it keeps the quantities constant from the past, and Posh offers a different lens.
Right. Hermann Posch, another German economist, developed an index that uses current period weighting.
So based on what we're buying now.
Yes. For a price index, you're weighting today's prices by the quantities purchased in the current year. So Pasha asks, how much does the basket I'm buying right now cost compared to what that same basket would have cost in the base year?
Ah, so it reflects current consumption patterns.
Exactly. Both are incredibly useful, but because our consumption habits change over time, we buy different things, new products emerge, they can produce slightly different results.
Which probably leads to debates about the true rate of inflation.
Often does. Lasper's tends to overstate inflation slightly if consumers substitute away from more expensive goods, while Pasham might understate it a bit. There are other formulas too, like Fisher's index, that try to average them out.
It's like different lenses on the same economic picture, as you said. Fascinating. And these fundamental principles, using complex weighting and base years, are applied to those massive stock market indexes we hear about all the time.
Exactly. They're prime examples of weighted indexes. Take the Sensex, for instance, also known as the BSE 30.
In India, right?
Yes, it's India's benchmark market index representing 30 large, well-established companies on the Bombay Stock Exchange. Its base year is way back, 1978-79, set at 100.
And the Nifty.
Similarly, the Nifty, or Nifty 50, represents 50 major companies listed on the National Stock Exchange of India, with a newer base year of 1995, also starting at a base value, though it was 1,000. These are complex weighted indexes, usually weighted by market capitalization, built on these same core principles we've been discussing.
We've heard about how powerful and essential index numbers are, literally shaping our economic understanding and, impacting policies that affect our daily lives. But what are the catches? Are there any inherent limitations we should be aware of when we interpret these numbers? They can't be perfect, right?
No, they're not perfect. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's crucial to understand that while index numbers are incredibly useful, they are not completely foolproof. They come with certain inherent limitations that users need to be aware of.
Such as what? How might they give us an incomplete or even misleading picture sometimes?
Well, first, as we touched on, they are generally based on samples.
Can't measure everything.
Right. You simply cannot include every single item or transaction in their construction. So they aren't entirely free from sampling errors. The sample might not perfectly represent the whole population or economy.
Okay, that's one potential issue. What else?
Second, there can be bias in the data collected. If the underlying price or quantity data is incomplete, inaccurately reported, may be collected only from certain types of stores, or reflects only a specific segment of the market.
Then the index will reflect that bias.
Inevitably. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say. The quality of the index depends heavily on the quality of the raw data.
That sounds like a fundamental challenge. What about the way they're constructed, the choices made?
Well, index numbers can also be misused. Because they rely on comparing a current situation to a chosen base year, there's a possibility that a base year might be deliberately selected to achieve a specific narrative.
How would that work?
For instance, a business wanting to downplay current performance might choose an exceptionally high profit year as their base, making current profits look smaller by comparison. Or someone wanting to exaggerate inflation might pick a base year with unusually low prices.
That's a serious ethical consideration, highlighting the importance of knowing the context in the base year.
Indeed, transparency is key. Furthermore, there's no single perfect formula for constructing an index number. Lesbayers, Posh, Fisher, others. Each method has its own mathematical properties, its strengths and weaknesses, and can give slightly different results. They inherit the general limitations of any statistical average.
And the economy itself is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
How does that constant change impact their accuracy over time?
That's a critical point. Changes in the economy are constant. Consumer habits shift, tastes evolve, entirely new products are introduced, think smartphones. Technology changes production methods, expectations change.
Yeah, the world doesn't stand still.
Exactly. And it's difficult to capture all these dynamic nuances perfectly within a fixed index structure. Even with periodic rebasing, the index might lag behind reality.
What about quality? You mentioned new products. If a product, say a computer, gets significantly better and faster, but its price also increases, how is that reflected? Or is it not reflected?
That's a classic challenge. Qualitative changes are often difficult to measure and are frequently ignored or only partially adjusted for in standard indexes.
So the index might show a price increase
when you're actually getting a much better product for that higher price. An index primarily focuses on the change in price or quantity, not necessarily the improved quality, features, or durability, which definitely influences its value to the consumer. Adjusting for quality change is a complex statistical problem.
I can imagine. Any other limitations?
Well, linked to the construction process, the weights assigned can sometimes feel arbitrary or, more commonly, become outdated between rebasing periods. And finally, index numbers often have a limited scope. One constructed for a very specific purpose, like a wholesale price index, might not be suitable or representative for analyzing consumer inflation or other broader economic trends. You need the right tool for the job.
So we've journeyed from those 17th century worries about rising prices all the way to the intricate calculations and formulas behind today's major economic indicators. Index numbers are clearly powerful, essential tools.
Absolutely. Essential for shaping policy, understanding trends, forecasting,
and even providing insights for future economic activity.
They indeed provide clarity in a complex world. They allow us to quantify changes that would otherwise remain pretty vague, just gut feelings.
Yeah.
But as we've explored, they are also built upon choices, samples, base years, formulas, weights, meaning they come with inherent limitations that are really important to understand and acknowledge.
What stands out to you most from this deep dive we've done?
For me, it's the duality. How incredibly useful they are, yet how important it is to look under the hood to understand how they're made and what they don't capture.
That's a great point. So next time you, our listener, hear a news report about inflation hitting a certain percentage, or industrial output rising or falling, or even the stock market's performance, remember that behind those headlines are these carefully constructed index numbers, each with a unique purpose, a specific methodology, and potentially some blind spots.
Definitely worth remembering.
Here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over. Knowing that index numbers are built on specific choices, from the base year selected to the items included in the basket and the weights assigned to those items, how might you critically evaluate the next economic headline that cites an index number? What deeper questions would you ask about its construction, its context, maybe the time period it covers, or its potential limitations to truly understand what that number is telling you, and perhaps what it isn't telling you about the economy?